Oh, hey guys. Hey, welcome to, I guess, episode 2 of I'm Related to a Police Officer, also known as Keeping Up with the Kardashians. Wait, no, I think their dad was a lawyer, just kidding. Hi guys. You are in my dad's class right now, which is kind of, I don't know, small world, isn't it? You guys had the joy of listening to my mom speak last week. Isn't she the sweetest? She's the best. She's awesome. Had it my way for dinner. So I will be answering some questions that you guys were kind enough to write down about what it's like to, I guess, have a parent that's a police officer. So I went through them all, kind of wrote down the gist of a lot of them, and I will be answering those for you guys in the most chaotic way I could possibly imagine. So, I guess first, a little bit about me. My name is Derek. I guess he wrote on the thing Mr. Derek Coffrin, which is super official. I usually just go by Derek or Squish. I am 27 years young. I will be getting married in about, 2.5 weeks. And I know what you're thinking. He looks like the dude that Mr. Frazier's daughter is going to marry, and you're right. Your principal is about to be my father-in-law. So I guess I'm going to get to do another one of these videos about what it's like to have a parent-in-law as a principal. So that'll be fun. Keep your eyes out for that. All right, a little bit about myself, and I used to make videos a lot. I used to be my dad's videographer, but I'm going to try to edit this as little as possible, just to try to keep it as real as I possibly can. A little bit about myself. Like I said, I'm 27 years old, young, whatever way you want to swing it. I've lived in Bloomington Normal my whole life, and my dad has been a police officer since before I can remember. Like I said, I'm getting married soon. I've got a dog. He's a corgi. Here's a picture of him. My fiance and I also have a dog. Her name is Molly. Here's a picture of her, and here's a picture of Emily's dog, Gabby, just so she doesn't get any hurt feelings. So, I went to school around here for a little bit, ended up going to a vocational school, which was a lot like BACC. It was called Midwest Technical Institute down in Springfield, Illinois. After that, I got my certification in HVAC, which stands for heating, ventilation, air conditioning, and I became a HVAC, as we call it, HVAC technician around town. I actually went back to Midwest Technical Institute to teach for a couple years, so that's another reason I was so willing to do this video, is I myself have taught at around this level, right around the same age group. I've also been teaching junior high at my church for about 8 years, so I was super happy to get the opportunity to do this for you guys. Currently, I work at Illinois Wesleyan University, right down the road, so if you ever want to grab lunch, probably that's against some rule, I'm sure. But yeah, I've been in town for most of my life. I did a little bit of a stint in Iowa for about 9 months, but yeah, that's enough about me. You guys aren't here to hear about me. You guys are here to hear about how awful my life was with a father as a police officer. Okay, so if you ever see me looking down, it's just looking at my phone. First question, was it different with a dad as a cop? And honestly, no, it wasn't. So, you know how like you grow up and when you're a kid, the world that you live in it's just the world. That's exactly how you take it. How many of you guys have parents that work at State Farm? I can't see any of your hands up, okay? This is a recording. But I'm sure a couple of you guys raised your hands, and your parents have jobs doing whatever they do. So growing up, my dad was a cop. That was what it was. It wasn't any different. I never felt different growing up. He was always a cop. That's just what Dad did. And Mom worked on computers, and Dad was a cop, and that's how life was. And it was normal. It was normal. I never thought anything of it. Dad was a cop since before I was born, so it was something I was born into. It was my world, and it was relative to me that was normal. I knew other dads didn't have the same profession, but it was normal that my dad was a cop. Okay, I got this question a lot. Would I want to be a cop when I grew up? Did I want to be a cop when I was younger? Did I ever think about following in his footsteps when I was younger? What did I want to do when I grew up? So probably my favorite time of the year was Halloween, and I would love to just pick out the dopest possible Halloween costume possible. And I remember one year I really, really, really wanted to be an FBI agent. I wanted to have the shoulder holster, and I wanted to have the cool hat, you know, and I wanted just to pretend that I was an FBI agent. And I think that came from my dad, and I thought that was the coolest thing in the world, just to be what my dad was. And at some point, I did want to be a police officer. I thought about it, and I actually, practiced, tried out, interviewed for a Bloomington police officer position. And it was at a time in my life where it was kind of a transitionary period, and I guess I fell back on what I knew, and that was what my dad did, which was being a police officer. So that I fortunately, honestly, fell through because it opened up a opportunity for me to be where I am today, which I think is the best job in the world, what I do. I love what I do, but that's what made my dad such a good cop, I think. He loved what he did, and he was so extremely passionate about it, and he would always tell me that he wanted to be a cop since he was, really young. And when he was in the Army, he was a military policeman or an MP. I'm sure you guys have seen that patch that he's got in that case in his classroom. And that was something he always wanted to do, something that he was passionate about. And I think that's what made him such a good cop, that he was passionate about it. And I saw the passion that my dad had for that, and the thing I knew that I had to do if I was to find a job that I was happy with is just to find something that I was passionate about. I got this question a few times. Did he miss any events? Not that I can recall. My dad was off a night shift, I believe, before I can remember. So you guys know that age where you can start to recollect things and memories really start sticking. By the time I had gotten to that age, my dad was already a detective. So I don't really remember nights that he was at work or anything like that. And I definitely don't remember him missing a whole lot in my childhood because of his job. He had pretty normal hours, I think, being a detective. And I got this question a lot too. Did he miss any sporting events? So the only sport that I was ever in high school was, in junior high actually, was wrestling. I was a wrestler, and I was a piss poor wrestler. So I think in my 2-ish years of wrestling, I only won twice. So there were a lot of traveling meets and whatnot. But I can tell you that every time I won those 2 glorious times, my dad was there. And he was fortunate enough to be the school resource officer at the high school that I went to, Normal West. Go Wildcats. Or I guess whatever you want to do. He was the SRO at my high school, so if there was an event there, he would be there, and we would always go to my sister's event. She was a cheerleader, so we would be very regular in catching her stuff and cheering her on and whatnot. So my dad made a very intentional effort to be present. Even though he was a police officer and he had a lot of other, I guess, engagements or whatnot, whatever you want to call them, he made a very conscious effort to be there for us and to support us. Okay. Next one, was I treated differently because my dad was a cop? Yeah, I was, and it's one of those things where you can't choose the people that you grow up around sometimes. So people in grade school or people in junior high or people in high school, they're going to treat you differently no matter what. They're just those people. And, you know, there were kids that growing up, they would call my dad a racist or they would call me a racist by, I guess, the transitive property or whatever. Just because my dad was a cop, that meant that he was a racist. And since he, you know, raised me, that meant that I was a racist and whatnot. And even so much as, you know, calling me a snitch or whatever, just people treating me differently. Did I let that affect me? No, I really tried my hardest not to. The stuff that people picked on me for that I really let get to me it was never that my dad was a cop, you know. So that really never got to a point where it was detrimental to me when I was growing up. Did I think I could get away with anything? Hell yeah. Oh man. So you see it on TV all the time. All right, somebody knows a cop and they get into trouble. Who do they call? Okay, who gets them off scot-free? I thought that I was untouchable. Okay, I sped a lot and I thought, you know, having a dad who was a cop would get me out of any ticket that I could possibly get. And I found out pretty quick that I was mistaken, because I think a lot of cops have the same mindset that my kid's not going to be any different just because of what I do. So I'm sure my dad told his coworkers that if they ever pull me over, give me a ticket because I probably deserved it. But I did think I could get away with anything. I mean, it's like if your dad was the president, you think you can get away with anything, right? Did I treat others differently because my dad was a cop? Did I think I had any special privileges? Did I think I was untouchable? Not to the point where it was harmful to anybody. And I'm not trying to make myself seem like a goody two-shoes, but sometimes, you know, the children of people in power think that they have some special privileges, that they can treat other people a certain way because nothing bad is ever going to happen to them. I never thought I was untouchable, you know, that particular way. My father always raised me in a very open-minded household between him and my mom. Nobody should be treated any less than who they actually are. And Tupac, it's my dude. My dad doesn't like that I listen to him, but Tupac said it best. He said, especially in the thing of race, it ain't about black or white because we're human. So of course I never treated anybody different just because my dad was a cop. So yeah, that was never part of it, and I never saw that as being an issue. Let's see. Was he strict? He absolutely was strict. So a thing about my dad's job that I didn't find out until later in life, until he was almost about ready to retire, that he worked a lot in juvenile cases. So when you think of like the most innocent of the innocent when it comes to humans, you think of, you know, old people, you think of women, you think of children. And unfortunately, my dad had to see the worst in people. And he always tried his best to protect my mom and my sisters from whatever he could. And that, I guess, in my, you know, growing up in grade school, junior high, high school mind, it translated to him being strict, him never, you know, letting us be out past a certain time, him giving us a curfew, stuff like that. I thought it was strict, but it was him doing what he felt that he could in the position of being my father to protect me. So I guess strict is kind of a relative term when it comes to that question. it could be just he's very, very involved in my safety, so maybe, something like that. But I thought he was strict growing up. Looking back now and looking and seeing what I might be like if I ever have children, I look at some of the stuff my dad did with me and my sisters, and I'm like, good on you, Jeff. Good on you. Did I pay more attention to laws? Some laws, yes. Other laws, no. Stuff that I would consider little laws, like speeding or texting when I'm driving or being on the phone when I'm driving. Pretty much any moving violation I tried not to pay attention to. But other stuff, like drugs and alcohol and that kind of stuff, I really tried to actively avoid. Mostly because I was scared of my father and what he would do if he ever found out. The rest being because I knew that it was wrong. And I was, I guess my parents did a good enough job raising me that when I saw something that I knew wasn't right in that capacity, to not do it. So... so some laws I really paid more attention to, some laws I didn't. Did I ever get into serious legal trouble? No, I did not. I've been pulled over, oh man, I'm going to have to get my toes out, a few times. I've gotten ticketed twice, but other than that, I've never been any big legal trouble. I know I'm thinking a lot, and you guys are thinking I'm lying, but really, I other than the traffic ticket, I have not. Let's see. Were my friends ever afraid to come over? I like that question. I like it a lot. Some kids, yeah, because they were the bad kids, and they knew my dad wouldn't like the way that they would act at our house because his parents let him be a totally different way, and so yeah, some of my friends were afraid of my dad. They were afraid to approach him. They were, afraid that he would always, get them in trouble, or my dad was some big scary boogeyman just because he had a badge. But most of my really, really close friends, they knew who my dad was. They knew who I was. They were never really scared, especially when I got into high school. And some really, really close friends that I had actually embrace that my dad was a cop, and they wouldn't treat him any different because of it, and they would treat him like their own parent, and my dad would treat them like his own kids, and it was really great to see that people can put a kind of aside that bias, that your dad's a cop, or your dad is in some authoritative position, but I'm not going to treat him any different. So let's see. Would I ever want him to have a different job? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. I remember in high school when he was a school resource officer at West, he would know my test scores before I knew my test scores. So I knew if I got a hall pass to come see him, man, while I was walking down there, I would really, really wish my dad wasn't an SRO. But I'm glad that my dad got to spend so many years doing something that he was extremely passionate about, and seeing the people that he helped out along the way, and seeing the influence that he had in the community, and all the awesome things that he did. I would not want him to have done anything else with his life. Let's see. Hardest or the worst parts of having a father as a cop? I think our relationship was a little impacted, just because the specific type of stubborn that I am as a human being, and the want of my dad to try to protect me from all that bad juju that he saw going on in the world. That usually kind of translated into some communication errors, him not wanting to be as open with me about how his day was or what was going on in his life, and vice versa with me. So that was probably the hardest part, just the relationship. And if I can give you guys any pointers, if you are looking at becoming a law enforcement officer, communicate with your family as much as you possibly can. That's going to ease the stress of your job, and it's going to ease the stress of them being a family member of someone with your job. So, what was the best part or the best memory? The best part of having a dad as a cop was that literally, you guys, you hear people say it all the time, but my dad was my hero. My dad was this larger than life superhero that, went straight into a dangerous situation and didn't look back, and he was all about helping people. And it was just, as much as I couldn't see it when I was growing up, looking back on his career, that was just it. It's amazing to see, and it's inspiring to see. So that was definitely the best part, just seeing all the good that came out of his job. And he never did it for himself. He always did it because it was what he wanted to do. It was what he was passionate about. And seeing that and growing up with that and really being able to process that and use that to kind of help mold me into a human being, an adult, if you will. I don't count myself as an adult yet, but that was really the best part. Let's see, where would I be today if my dad wasn't a cop? I don't know, but I'm glad he was a cop. I'm glad my life so far has gone the way that it has gone. I don't usually think about what life would be like if my dad worked at State Farm. No offense to any State Farmers, or if my dad was a checkout clerk at Target, or if my dad was a factory worker. I never think about that. I just know my dad was a cop, and my life is the way it is because of that, partially. So, did I ever fear for his safety? No. Honestly, I didn't. I remember back before it was in that weird transition. It was right before the Cubbies sucked again, and right before they started winning the World Series. They were really decent for a couple of years, and there were a few times, and I think my mom may have mentioned this, but there were a few times where they got really, really close to going somewhere with their season, right? And I guess because of the time frame between the World Series that they last won, there was some worries, there were some hesitations, I guess, that people might want to riot down here in the good old city of Bloomington Normal, Illinois. So my dad was on call, and he got his riot gear out, right? So the big old helmet, like the big wooden nightstick, and all the pads and everything. And I was not scared one bit. I thought that was the coolest thing ever. I ran over to the bag and I put all his stuff on, and I was like, woo, this is awesome. I can't believe you get to do this. You might have to karate chop people, because I was big into Power Rangers at that point. So yeah, that was, I was never really scared for his safety. I felt more safe every time my dad was by me. And growing up, you see stuff that your dad does that you don't really think about until you're older. For an example, he always had to sit so that he was facing the door. Like a restaurant, anywhere we went, he was always facing the door. And he did that so that if anything went down, he would be able to respond appropriately to that as a law enforcement officer. Because even though you clock out of work every day, you're still I guess, wearing that badge 24/7. So I never felt fear for his safety. I always felt safer that he was near, if that makes sense. Let's see. Did I ever have to be a father figure for my sisters? No, my dad was a phenomenal father figure to all his kids. I know that I was a little bit on the irresponsible side when I was growing up. So, if anything, along with my dad, my sisters had to be secondary fathers to me because I was a wily little bastard. Okay. But no, I never had to be a father figure to my sisters. They had a father figure, and he was, like I said before, he was always there. I don't ever remember missing him, for lack of a better term, or wondering where he was, or wishing he was home, or anything like that. He was, as far as I can remember, he was there home safe every single night. And yeah, he was a very extremely present father. Let's see. Was he there when I needed him? Absolutely. Anytime. Anytime. And that goes for all of his kids. I laugh because my sister was on her way to work one morning and she couldn't get into her car because there was a spider on the door handle. And some of you guys can relate, where you wouldn't even want to touch that thing with the 10-foot pole. Her first thought wasn't, I can open up the passenger's door because that doesn't have a gigantic spider by it and I can crawl through. No, her first instinct was to call my dad. And God bless the man. He was right over there and he helped her figure it out as soon as he could get there. Yeah, he was always there when I needed him. That all factored into him being my superhero. I'm a big fan of comic books and whatnot. And Superman, he's got this reporter friend, photographer friend. His name's Jimmy Olsen. And in the way old comic books, he gave Jimmy a watch where when Jimmy would press a button, it would emit this frequency, this sound that only Superman could hear. So as soon as Jimmy, hit that button, Superman he would hear it wherever he was in the world, and he would be right there. That's what I felt like my dad was. Didn't matter where he was, didn't matter what he was doing. I could call my dad and he'd be right there. I just erased half the people in the universe. Oh man, that was an Infinity War joke. Hope you guys get that. Moving on. All right. Let's see. My favorite animal. All right. This is a fun little question because it's all like, did you miss your dad? Were you scared? What not? What's your favorite animal? My favorite animal. Are we talking about to own or to see or to look at or to pet? Probably my favorite animal overall is the domestic dog because I love dogs, and if I could be a dog, I would. I'm the most dog person out of all the people that I know. If I had to choose an animal to just look at and read about and be interested about, it'd be the peregrine falcon. If you don't know about the peregrine falcon, I'd suggest you look it up. It is the fastest animal on planet Earth. I know you guys are thinking oh, but a cheetah, but a peregrine falcon. Okay, so look it up. This thing can dive at 200 miles an hour. All right, it's awesome. Anyways, moving on. Did you ever get to drive the cruiser? I did not. I got to ride in the back of the cruiser once, and in the front a couple times. I went on ride-alongs with my dad twice throughout his career. One, I think it was 4th of July that him and I went, and then the second one I went his last day on patrol before he retired. And those are both pretty cool. They weren't exciting days by any means. I know one day we had a lockout, so I got to watch my dad Jimmy a car door open. But it was pretty cool. It was pretty cool. He let me work the radar gun, and it was so cool. So you know how if you've been doing something for long enough, you know certain things, and it was so crazy riding around with this dude who'd been a cop for 28 years, and I'm fiddling there with a radar gun, and I'm trying to catch speeders, because not knowing that it was my dad's last tour of duty, I guess, patrol, and they weren't going to let him do anything if he didn't absolutely have to. So I'm shooting these cars, with the laser gun, and I'm like, oh man, he's flying, and my dad'd be like, yeah, he's going about 42, and 42 miles an hour. What the hell? How do you know that? He was that good at his job. So that was pretty fun. The time I got to ride in the back of the cruiser, my dad was giving me a ride. I can't remember where, but my car was in the shop, and he came to pick me up in the squad car, and his front seat was full of stuff, and I'm like, it's totally fine. I can sit in the back. I don't want to, wreck your front seat or whatever. So I get in the back, right? And I don't know how many of you guys have ever been in the back of a cop car. Anybody? I still can't see your hands. This is a recording. I'm kidding. So I don't know if you guys have ever been in the back seat of a police car, but it's molded, like the back part is molded so that it fits it. You can sit easier if you have your hands handcuffed behind your back. So here I am, an upstanding member of society, trying to get comfy in this cop car, okay? So I fold my hands behind my back, and I look like I'm handcuffed and I'm arrested. So, we're passing people, and sometimes I get a little fidgety, and these people are looking over, and, they see some guy in the back of the cop car, and they're like, oh, and then I'll break my hands open, and I'll be like, oh, and they'll be like, oh my God, he's free. Not knowing that I was his son, and he was simply giving me a ride. So yeah, it was always fun to be in the cruiser. I did get a question, did I ever get to hit the lights and sirens? I did not. I guess that's against some sort of rule. But no, I never got to hit the lights or sirens. Did I feel more pressure to be a good kid? Absolutely. Absolutely. I knew how important the law was to my dad. And I wanted to follow that, and I felt like if I ever got in any trouble, nobody likes to be in trouble, and I felt like I was under a microscope sometimes, not only by my dad because he was a cop, but from other people because they knew my dad was a cop. So people were constantly looking for reasons to bust me. So I tried to be a good kid, but that didn't always work out. And one of the last questions I got, this one was from Joseph Castro. I don't have a period on here, so if you are Joseph Castro, I'd like to share these with the class. First one, were you scared of your dad getting hurt? I always felt safer with him. Did you ever want to be a cop? Again, at some point in my life, absolutely. And the third one, I don't know if you guys can see this or not. Let's see if we can get it to focus. Just says IDK. Well, Joseph, I don't know either sometimes. Last question, and I'm sure the question that you guys would like to know of your family if you ever want to be a police officer is, am I proud of him? And I am extremely proud of my dad. I love what he does. I love what he did. I love who he was to me. I love who he was to the community, and I'm extremely proud of him. And especially the world we live in today, the stigma that's goes with being a cop. I was super, super, super proud and #blessed to have a dad that counteracted that whole thing. He helped people. He never looked at anybody different because of their lifestyle or color of their skin or how they lived their life. He was there to help, and sometimes helping people means to hold them accountable to the laws that they break. But I know my dad did his job for a long time, and he did that job for a long time very well. So yeah, I'm proud of my dad. I absolutely am proud of my dad. So that's really in a nutshell all these questions. I know I've been talking your guys' ears off for about 35 minutes here, according to the clock. Having it my way again. But I do want to encourage you guys to really take all that you can from this class. I'm not sure why each and every one of you is here. Some of you guys are here because you want to be a police officer, which is awesome. We need more decent, good people out there. I say we like I'm a cop. I'm not. I'm just cop's kid. Some of you guys are here to just understand more about the law, more about the criminal justice aspect of things. Maybe you guys want to be a councilman or a councilwoman or something down the line. But jobs I've found that are the most beneficial to me and experiences I've found that are the most beneficial to me are those where I can take as much knowledge as I possibly can and just suck it up like a little sponge. Okay? So use this class to your advantage. Ask my dad whatever questions you ever want to. He's a great guy. He's a great guy to have a conversation with. He's got a lot of answers and a lot of life experience. And if you guys ever want to ask me a question that might not have got answered, have my dad shoot me your, I guess, contact information or get my contact information from my dad. But guys, I really want to thank you for this opportunity. Hope you've had fun. Hope you got some good answers. And I guess I'll see you around. I don't know. Bye, guys.
It's been